She dumped me for her ex. I got the last laugh, pro-revenge. It felt like a scene from a movie, the kind where the soundtrack swells just as the protagonist's world crumbles. Sarah sat across from me, the dim light of our favorite Italian place casting long shadows on her face. Her voice, usually so bright and cheerful, was now tight, strained. "Mark," she started, fiddling with her wine glass. This isn't easy for whom, I wondered, suddenly cold despite the warm ambience. We'd been together for 2 years. We were practically living a rom-com. Weekend hikes, cozy nights in, planning our future, or so I thought. "I think," she continued, avoiding eye contact, "we're growing apart." Growing apart? We just spent last weekend repainting the spare bedroom. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. I'm normally pretty composed, but I felt like I was about to fall off a cliff. She launched into a well-rehearsed speech about needing space, finding herself, blah, blah, blah. I only half listened, my mind reeling. I kept waiting for but that never came. Just a clean, brutal severing. The why remained a mystery until a week later. I was drowning my sorrows at cheap beer at a dive bar down the street when I saw them. Sarah, arm in arm with David, her ex. David, the guy she used to complain about constantly. David, the entitled finance bro with more money than sense. They looked sickeningly happy, like they were starring in their own personal rom-com sequel. The sequel where I got written out. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just the breakup, it was the lie, the manipulation. I felt like an idiot. The first few weeks were a blur of self-pity and junk food. I couldn't concentrate at work, my coding was sloppy, and I was generally a miserable human being. My friend Emily, who I worked with at Tech Solutions, noticed immediately. "You look like you've been hit by a truck," she said bluntly one afternoon, barging into my cubicle. Emily never sugarcoated anything, which was exactly what I needed. I mumbled something about a bad breakup, and she just rolled her eyes. "Get over it, Mark. You're a brilliant engineer. Don't let some girl derail your life." Her words stung, but they also jolted me awake. She was right. I was letting Sarah win, and I wasn't about to let that happen. I started throwing myself into work. I had been working on a new algorithm for optimizing data flow, a project that could potentially revolutionize our company's infrastructure. Before, I had been coasting, doing just enough to get by. Now I was obsessed. I spent late nights at the office, fueled by coffee and a burning desire to prove myself not just to Sarah, but to myself. As I poured myself into my work, something unexpected happened. I got really, really good. The algorithm started taking shape, exceeding everyone's expectations. My boss, Mr. Thompson, started taking notice. He was usually a pretty reserved guy, but he'd stop by my desk, ask questions, and actually listen to my answers. Meanwhile, I started doing some digging. I knew Sarah had always been attracted to David's wealth and status. I started looking into Titan Investments, the firm where he worked. I figured there had to be something shady going on. Wall Street always has its secrets, right? I started small, checking public records, news articles, and industry reports. Nothing concrete, just whispers of questionable practices. Then, I remembered something David had said once, during a dinner party when Sarah and I were still together. He'd bragged about making a killing on a particular stock, just before it tanked. He'd laughed about it, calling it insider information. That stuck in my mind. I used my coding skills to develop a program that could analyze market data and identify unusual trading patterns. It was a side project, something I worked on in my spare time, but it became an obsession. I told Emily about it, swearing her to secrecy. "You're playing a dangerous game, Mark," she warned. "Be careful. You don't want this to backfire." I knew she was right, but I couldn't stop. I felt like I was on a mission. Weeks turned into months. The algorithm at work was exceeding expectations. My program was doing the same. I started uncovering some truly disturbing patterns at Titan Investments. It looked like David was involved in a complex scheme of insider trading, using confidential information to make illegal profits. The more I dug, the more I found. It was like unraveling a giant, tangled web of deceit. I meticulously documented everything, saving every piece of evidence on encrypted drives. I knew I had to be careful. If David found out what I was doing, he could bury me. One night, Sarah called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Mark," she said, her voice trembling. I need to talk to you." "About what, Sarah?" "The weather," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "It's about David," she stammered. "Things aren't good." I could practically hear the desperation in her voice. "Really? I'm shocked." She started to cry. He's not who I thought he was. He's controlling, and he's always doing shady things at work. I'm scared, Mark." "Well, Sarah," I said, trying to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. Maybe you should have thought about that before you dumped me for him. And then I hung up. I knew I was being petty, but I couldn't help it. The next step was the hardest. I had all the evidence, but I didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't just go to the authorities myself. David would know it was me in an instant. I decided to leak the information anonymously. I created a burner email account and sent a detailed report, along with all the supporting documentation, to the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. I made sure to use encryption and proxy servers to cover my tracks. Then, I waited. A few weeks later, the news broke. Titan Investments was under investigation by the SEC for insider trading. The news spread like wildfire. David was named as a key suspect. I watched it all unfold from a distance, a strange mixture of satisfaction and apprehension churning in my stomach. I knew what I had done was risky, but I felt like I had no choice. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Titan Investments' stock price plummeted. David was suspended from his job. His reputation was in tatters. Sarah was caught in the crossfire. She was publicly humiliated, branded as the girlfriend of a financial criminal. I saw pictures of her in the tabloids, looking pale and distraught. Meanwhile, things were going incredibly well for me. My algorithm was a huge success. Mr. Thompson offered me a promotion, with a significant raise and a corner office. I even started getting calls from other companies, headhunters trying to poach me. I used those offers to negotiate an even better deal at Tech Solutions. More money, more responsibility, and a chance to lead my own team. I was finally getting the recognition I deserved. Sarah tried to contact me again, begging me to meet her. I refused. I had nothing left to say to her. I moved into a new apartment, a sleek, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows and a stunning view of the city. It was a far cry from the cramped, outdated apartment I had shared with Sarah. I started attending industry conferences, networking with other professionals, and giving presentations on my work. I was finally living the life I had always dreamed of. One evening, I was at a bar, celebrating my latest success with Emily when I saw them. Sarah and David. They looked miserable. David was slumped over the bar, nursing a beer. Sarah was staring into space, her face etched with sadness. I learned later that David had been charged with multiple counts of fraud and was facing years in prison. He had lost everything: his job, his money, his reputation. Sarah was working as a receptionist at a small accounting firm. She was a shell of her former self. I felt a pang of sympathy for them, but it was fleeting. They had made their choices. They had reaped what they sowed. I walked past them, my head held high, a slight smile playing on my lips. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. A few weeks later, I got a call from Jessica, a recruiter from a hot tech startup. She offered me a leadership position, with a salary that was almost double what I was making now. It was an opportunity I couldn't refuse. I accepted the offer, knowing that I was finally on the path to something truly great. I never saw Sarah or David again, but I heard through the grapevine that David was working a low-level job at a call center, barely making ends meet. And Sarah was still stuck at the accounting firm, answering phones and filing paperwork. I had won. Not just in terms of my career, but in terms of my life. I was happier, more successful, and more fulfilled than I had ever been before. And it was all thanks to them. They had unwittingly motivated me to become the best version of myself.